Hi, my name is Brenda Liu, and I'm a doctoral student at Boston College and part of the Clavies research team. Previously, I was a first and second grade teacher in a Spanish dual language program in New York City where I taught for 10 years. And today, what I will be doing is walking you through the first unit of Clavies, Humans and Nature. Before we begin, I want to direct your attention to these two very useful QR codes. The QR code on the top will lead you to the webpage with all the Clavies lessons, and the QR code on the bottom will lead you to the webpage with all the video tutorials, including this one, that will walk you through how to teach Clavies. So to begin, I want to give you an overview of this unit. This unit will center on two important questions: how are humans and nature interdependent, and how do humans affect nature? There are a total of 4 cycles in this unit, starting with a cycle 0 that will introduce you and your students to the main themes of this unit, 2 reading cycles, cycles 1 and 2, and a final writing cycle, cycle 3, in which students will write an argumentative essay sharing their perspectives on the themes and questions of this unit. As mentioned in previous videos, Clavies is a multimodal curriculum, meaning that you and your students will be engaging in a variety of different types of text, including books, videos, and articles. The 2 reading cycles will center around one focal book, which will be supplemented by a video, which will be found in the cycle's PowerPoint, as well as an article, which can be found in the student workbook. In Cycle 3, students will be reading an article, Does Google Make Us Less Smart?, that will serve as their mentor text for learning how to write an argumentative essay. All of the unit materials, with the exception of the 2 focal books, can be found on the Clavies website. Each cycle will have a PowerPoint attached to it, as well as a set of lesson plans that will guide you through teaching the cycle. Additionally, cycles 1, 2, and 3 will have a student workbook that you will need to make a copy of for each student that will be participating in Clavies. I want to reiterate again that all of these materials are found on the website, with the exception of the focal books, which you will need to find on your own, either in the library, bookstore, or online. Now I will be walking you through the 4 different cycles of this unit, beginning with cycle 0, which is the introduction. This cycle consists of only one lesson in which you will be watching a video and discussing it with your students. The video that you'll be watching is called Is It Time to Reassess Our Relationship with Nature?, which can be found in the PowerPoint. Again, after you watch this video, you will discuss the video with your students, and then you will teach into some of the key vocabulary that you will be using throughout the unit. The vocabulary that you will be teaching in this lesson are ecosystem, interdependence, and balance. You will also teach into some of the morphology of these words. The morphology that you will be teaching are the prefixes eco, meaning environment, and inter, meaning among or together. After this introductory cycle or lesson, you will then dive right into the first reading cycle, which is cycle 1, Wolves Are Back. There are 6 lessons in this cycle, and the cycle will culminate in a discussion about the cycle question, should wolves be introduced into national parks? Once again, all the materials, with the exception of the focal book, can be found on the website. You will have a PowerPoint, a student workbook, and a set of lesson plans. In this cycle, you will be engaging with 3 different texts. In lessons 1 and 2, you and your students will be reading the book The Wolves Are Back by Jean Craighead George. This book is about the reintroduction of wolves to Yellowstone National Park. In Lesson 3, you will be watching the video Wolves and Ranchers, which can be found in the PowerPoint. This video shares the perspectives of ranchers who live near Yellowstone National Park and some of their concerns about the threat that wolves pose to their family and to their livestock. In Lessons 4 and 5, you will be reading the article Wolf Spirit Returns to Idaho by Mark Cheater, which can be found in the student workbook. This article shares the perspectives of the Nez Perce people and their special relationship with wolves. In addition to the text, students will be learning a language target for each of the first 5 lessons of the cycle. In Lessons 1 through 3, they will be learning key vocabulary. In Lessons 1 and 2, you will be introducing 2 words. In Lessons 1 and 2, you will be introducing 2 words in each lesson. And in Lesson 3, you will be reviewing the words. The words that you will be teaching in this cycle are exterminate, reintroduce, depopulate, and restore. After teaching the key vocabulary, you will then dive right into the morphology. In Lesson 4, you will be teaching the prefixes D, meaning not or undo, and re, meaning again or back. After teaching these prefixes, you will then have students play the game Wheel of Morphology, which you can find either in the lesson plans or in the PowerPoint. In this game, students will spin the Wheel of Morphology, and then whichever word the wheel lands on, students will then attach the prefix D or re to that word. After attaching the prefix, students will then come up with a definition of the new word that they just created. In Lesson 5, students will be learning about pronouns. Specifically, they will be learning about the subject pronouns I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. After learning about these pronouns, they will then complete an activity in the student workbook in which they will read several sentences, locate the pronoun, and then figure out what or who the pronoun is referring to. Finally, Lesson 6 will be your discussion day. You will begin by reviewing the discussion norms that you see on the slide, and then students will discuss the cycle question, should wolves be introduced into national parks? Students can use all of the notes they have taken so far in this cycle to help them discuss this question. After you complete Cycle 1, it's now time for the second reading cycle, Cycle 2. This cycle will center around the book We Are Water Protectors. This cycle, like all reading cycles, will have 6 lessons, and the main question that students will be building up to is, should bodies of water like rivers and lakes have the same rights as humans? Once again, all of the materials, with the exception of the book, can be found on the Clavi's website, and this includes the PowerPoint, student workbook, and lesson plans. These are the texts that you will be reading and watching throughout this cycle. In Lessons 1 and 2, you will be reading the book We Are Water Protectors by Carol Lindstrom. This book is about how Indigenous activists have been fighting to protect water. Students will consider why water is important and why it needs to be protected. In Lesson 3, students will be watching the video The Team Fighting to Protect Canada's Water, which can be found in the PowerPoint. This video is about a real-life water protector, Autumn Peltier, a 13-year-old activist from Manitoulin Island of the Wikwemikong First Nation in Ontario, Canada. And then finally, in Lessons 4 and 5, students will be reading the article, Should Lakes and Rivers Have the Same Rights as Humans?, which can be found in the student workbook. This article presents opposing perspectives on whether lakes and rivers should have the same rights as humans. In Lessons 1 and 2, you will be introducing the key vocabulary words protector, stand, unfit, and mistreat. You will then review all 4 of these words in Lesson 4. In Lesson 3, you will be talking about the two prefixes mis, meaning in a way that is bad or wrong, and un, meaning giving negative or opposite meaning. After students learn and practice these two prefixes, they will then play a game called Word Creation Race, which can be found in the student workbook. In this game, students will race against each other to see how many mis and un words they can think of within 3 minutes. In Lesson 5, students will learn about the verb tenses. Students will learn about past tense, present tense, and future tense, and how to tell when a verb is a particular tense. After learning about the tenses, students will complete an activity in their student workbook where they will look for sentences in the article that are either past tense, present tense, or future tense. Finally, in Lesson 6, students will be discussing the cycle question: should bodies of water like rivers and lakes have the same rights as humans? Again, make sure to review the discussion norms with students, and make sure to remind students that they can use all of the notes they have taken so far in this cycle to help them answer the question. Finally, we have Cycle 3, the writing cycle. In this cycle, students will be writing an argumentative essay. This cycle consists of 3 lessons. However, feel free to extend the cycle if you do feel like your students need a little bit more time to draft, revise, and publish. Once again, all the materials for this cycle can be found on the website. You can find the PowerPoint, the student workbook, and the lesson plans. I also want to remind you that students can use their other Unit 1 notebooks to help them write, such as their Cycle 1 and Cycle 2 workbooks that will help them come up with evidence for their argumentative essay. The main text for this cycle is the article, "Does Google Make Us Less Smart?" This is an article you can find both in the student workbook and in the PowerPoint, and students will be using this article as a mentor text to think about the parts of an argumentative essay and how they might come up and write their own argumentative essay. You will use the article to think about the different parts of an argumentative essay, including the introduction, the opinion, reasons, evidence, conclusion, and transition words. And the prompt that students will be thinking about for this cycle is: should humans be responsible for solving problems such as animal extinction and environmental issues? Students will write an argumentative essay explaining their position on this question. That brings us to the end of this brief overview. If you want to review all the different parts of this unit, you can always refer back to the scope and sequence, which will list out all of the text that you will be reading throughout each lesson of each cycle, as well as the language targets. And you will also find in the scope and sequence several guiding questions that will help you teach this unit. You can scan the QR code to directly access the scope and sequence. Okay, that is it for me. Thank you so much for listening to this video, and when you are ready, you can go on to watch the Unit 2 video with Annie to learn all about what Unit 2 of Claves is. And when you're ready, you can go on to watch the Unit 2 video with Annie to learn all about the second unit of Claves.